I'm
Hello,
putting the
everyone.
show number in the tweets now, just
Cool.
because.
Oh, we have to record this, right?
Yes. Please
Yes.
record your audio. Hello, everyone. We'll also mention this when we start recording, but this week and next week we're recording live on Thursdays instead of Fridays because we are not around this Friday or next Friday.
I mean, we might not even do the podcast next week. Let's be clear here. If nothing really happens,
Sure.
we're all going to be around for 3 days.
The rest of the world, though, still has work done. A 5-day work week.
Do we have Monday off this week?
Yes. We have Monday. We have Friday off tomorrow.
4-day weekend.
Yes. 4-day weekend this weekend, and then we have a 4-day weekend next weekend. Nobody else does. This is just internal Windows Central chat.
The presumption is, well, we'll talk about it when we
Still
start the
gonna work.
podcast. All right, the tweet has been sent.
I'll do mic test quick. Testing 1, 2, 3. Quick testing 1, 2, 3. Whoa, my mic's
Whoa.
well loud. There we go. Hopefully it's okay.
Well, I just got to send out the tweet for my account.
God, my laptop feels like a radio.
Yeah, it's hot in here as well. My studio is spitting out heat.
There's like a sunbeam shining on it too.
Yeah, you guys are getting our heat now.
Yeah, I remember last week when I was like, oh, it's nice and cool now. This week's not so cool.
I told you. I told you. There's more on the way.
It hasn't rained here in weeks. It needs to rain. It's so
Same here.
just dry
Yeah.
outside.
We had a drought. All right, let me minimize all this. Close all that.
All right, remember, Jez, we do a countdown when we start recording.
Let me bring up my broadcast and the recorder. Okay, I am now recording.
I'm now recording.
Are you recording, Jess?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Windows Central Podcast, episode 280 for August 11th, 2022. Hey everyone, Daniel Rubino here, joined with Zach Bowden for another exciting... Oh, wait, and Jez Gordon for another exciting episode of the Windows Central Podcast. Yes, we're adding a third member to this podcast because Jez thinks we're too boring, just with just Zach and myself, apparently. So he's going to come in and share his views on the news. Speaking of, let's talk about that. So this week we're going to be talking a little bit about the Samsung Unpacked event, specifically around the Fold 4, which was announced. We'll talk about, it in relation to the Duo 1 and 2, along with Android 12L, the changes that have come with the OS that Samsung has showed off. And then the real question, are any of us actually going to buy one? And will we give up Duo 2? Dun, dun, dun. Of course, Jez doesn't even have Duo 2, so he doesn't count, but he does have the Fold 3, so whether or not he upgrades will be interesting. I guess we'll also fade into how Samsung does a really good trade-in program, at least in certain countries, and something we wish Microsoft would do, although I'll explain why I think that they can't. But it would be helpful if you bought a Surface. Speaking of Microsoft, they laid off their consumer group. That's not their official name, but this was around 200 people whose jobs were around pushing consumer stuff around for Microsoft to prosumers and reaching out and doing campaigns and stuff. So we'll talk about what that means and what they kind of focused on, like what were they doing and what this means for those products / Microsoft's focus on consumers. Open source emojis. This will be a very short story. So I don't have a ton of thoughts on this. We'll do our reviews roundup as we had a bunch of reviews go up, and I'll talk about a new laptop that came this week, which so far I'm really kind of impressed with, and it's going to go head to head probably with another laptop that I'm also very impressed with. And then I guess we'll do the thing of the week, and hopefully I'll think of one. I should also mention we're doing this podcast a day early on Thursday, August 11th. And the reason for that is our company has mandated a couple days off for us in August. which none of us are going to say no to, really. Although some of us will still be working a little bit. August is typically a very slow month for news, and that's the reason for it. So it gives us also a little breather because as we move into the fall, of course, it's going to get busy. So next week will probably be on Thursday as well, and that'll be the last time we do that. But it also depends if there's going to be a lot of news next week and if it's worth the podcast. So we'll see. So stick a pin in that one. All right, Zach, Jez, how you guys doing?
Tired.
Why is everyone tired?
It's been hot. It's been another hot week here in the UK, and it just trains. I'm so bad at dealing with the sun. The sun gives me headaches.
Same. It's too warm.
Yeah.
You guys don't go outside enough.
Yeah, well, I don't care.
Well, anyways, that's good to know. All right, let's get to, I guess, Samsung's news now. So they had their Unpacked events. Anything that comes out from Samsung is always leaked so much ahead of time. They're like Apple at this point. So there are literally, I think, no surprises. Perhaps the biggest surprise or talking point was how the Z Flip 4 and Fold 4 are just sort of minor iterative updates or upgrades from the Flip 3 and Fold 3, which I think is pretty true. So I'm not going to rattle off all the specs unless you guys have them in front of you, but I think the big news is for the Fold 4, it's getting a new Snapdragon Gen 1. Was that processor called G1 or something like that?
The Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, I believe it's called.
Yeah, there you go. So it's getting that processor. They did make it slightly wider, which I applaud. Because, you know, the big complaints with the Folds, at least from me and a few other people, is especially the cover screen is a little bit too narrow. It's okay that it's kind of narrow. Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile, makes a really good point that he likes it because he can kind of use it one-handed. But then he also kind of reversed that position when he tried the, I forgot, was it the Mi?
Oppo.
The Oppo Fold that they did, which was a little bit wider. So they made this one just a few millimeters wider. So both the cover screen is a little bit better, wider now, as well as when you open it up, which is kind of nice. They improved 2 of the rear cameras, I believe. And they improved the, for those who don't know, the Fold 3 introduced a under-screen front-facing camera that's kind of hidden by pixels. They improved the pixel hiding. So you see it even less now. And people seem to be impressed with it. That said, one of the big complaints about the Fold 3 was it's got a terrible front-facing camera. And apparently that hasn't changed. Not a deal breaker in some ways. If you really need to take a selfie, you can just flip the device backwards and use the rear cameras because you have the cover screen. So you can do a workaround there. Although, Jez, I guess, you know, and we'll turn to you in a sec because, you know, about your Fold 3 experience. But like, if you were to do a meeting on Teams or Skype or something like that, you would have to use that interior, that front-facing camera, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I haven't done that many video calls on it, but I do use the interior camera with that's hidden underneath the display. Yeah, generally.
Got it. Yeah, so I think that's going to be that's a little bit disappointing. Price $17.99. Price did not change at all for
Very
this guy.
expensive.
Pretty expensive.
Which is funny because nobody seems to bat an eye at this price point for the Galaxy Fold.
I wouldn't say that. I still saw people like laughing at $17.99.
Really? Okay,
I just swallowed wrong. Yeah, I think people are still kind of horrified at the price.
Okay.
And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. You know, about Samsung's trade-in programs, which definitely help.
Yeah.
Now, this is shipping with Android 12L. I had to shut someone down. They're like, well, I was talking about 12L coming forward to do 1 and 2, which we still expect September, October timeframe, I think is fair. Someone was saying, oh, it's shameful that Microsoft hasn't shipped 12L yet, and they're not going to ship 13. And I was like, dude, the Fold 4 is launching with 12L, not 13. And it's like, and that comes out the end of August.
Yeah.
So maybe Duo is going to be, 6 weeks behind that? So, you know, this gets into the whole thing about people get OS update crazy, even though they probably can't explain to me necessarily what 13 is going to deliver. But Zach, why don't you talk about, because I didn't watch this event, about 12L, what Samsung's doing with it, and the changes? And do you expect any of that for Duo?
Yeah, so it's obviously hard to sort of to pinpoint things specifically because Samsung customizes Android so heavily that a lot of what was originally in Android gets sort of lost in Samsung's customizations. But there's the key element that sort of stood out among everybody, and that's the taskbar. The taskbar experience was announced when Android 12L was announced earlier this year. That was a Google specific announcement. And that was part of the 12L release. It's tied to the launch to an OEM's launcher, so the reason why Google announced it was because it's part of the stock launcher that ships in Android. And then OEMs can take that idea and implement it in their own launchers if they want to as well. Samsung appears to be doing that because with the Galaxy Fold 4, they did also unveil this new taskbar experience, which sits along the bottom of the screen and has like a sort of all apps button for you to load up any app you want. And you can also switch between apps, just like a normal Windows taskbar. And it also allows you to multitask. So it reduces a step in the multitasking experience on the Galaxy Fold, whereas before you had to usually swipe out a special sort of menu to get access to that experience. Now it's just running along the bottom, just like in Windows, and you click on apps and you can drag them around and initiate multitasking that way, which is a big improvement over what the Galaxy Fold experience was previously. But yes, that taskbar experience is a 12L thing technically. Whether that shows up on the Duo, I don't think it will. The taskbar only really makes sense on a single screen foldable. Got to keep in mind the Duo is 2 phone-sized screens. The taskbar doesn't really make much sense on phone-sized screens, which is why you don't see it on like the Pixel, because the Pixel's had Android 12L for a while now, but they didn't add the taskbar to that because it doesn't make sense there. I think the same can be said for the Duo. So the taskbar feature, I would be shocked if that shows up on Duo, but all the other the 12L enhancements will be there. Again, I think, as I've mentioned before, 12L for Surface Duo is going to be more of a UI update, and just more of Microsoft adding things. I think they're adding more pen stuff, for example, and a lot of the 12L enhancements will be under the hood stuff, just how things work from a technical perspective, rather than actual features on top of the OS for the user.
Interesting. And did Samsung mention anything about Fold 3 and I guess the Flip 3 getting updates?
No, they didn't. So people asked, they said, so will the Fold 3 get the taskbar and stuff? And they said, we're not commenting on future product plans. But I would be shocked if they don't. I mean, why wouldn't they, right? That they're basically the same.
Yeah, there's no hardware limitation.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Well, I guess maybe the only difference is maybe Samsung will wait for Android 13 and ship Android 13 on the Galaxy Fold 3 instead of going from 12L to 13. But other than that, I still think it will get the taskbar, because Android 13 will have the taskbar as well. So
I'm curious about taskbar, because I use the Galaxy Fold 3, it's my main phone, and that you mentioned the multitasking sort of swipe out menu. I really like that menu, and I think it's really intuitive and it works really well. You can just swipe it out and drag an app into a specific box for multitasking and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and with the taskbar, it takes up screen space. I mean, presumably there'll be option to hide it or something, or auto hide it like on a Windows taskbar. But I don't know. I'm interested to see it.
Yeah, so if you use navigation buttons on the Galaxy Fold, then technically it just takes up the navigation bar along the bottom. If you're using gestures, then it will technically bring back a bar at the bottom, which wouldn't be there with gestures enabled. But yeah, you can hide it. You can certainly turn it off. It's not something you have to use if you don't want to. But yeah, regarding the actual differences in multitasking, this is an editorial I actually published today about how, with the new taskbar stuff, does the Galaxy Fold finally dethrone the Surface Duo in regards to multitasking? Because I think those are the key differences between these two devices. One of them is a foldable tablet, which does a great job at being one sort of app at a time thing, and then the Surface Duo is a phone with 2 phone screens, which does a great job at being 2 phones. You can have 2 apps running side by side, do 2 different things at once, and it's all automatic. The Galaxy Fold 4 does certainly reduce the sort of cognitive load required for multitasking, because that UI is always in front of you now, so it's always sort of on your mind. But multitasking, based on what I've seen, obviously I've not used the Galaxy Fold 4, it appears multitasking still isn't automatic like it is on the Surface Duo. When I did my 6th month review of the Surface Duo, one of the demos I showed is when you tap on a link in one app, the browser will shift over and open on the other screen where the empty space is. The Galaxy Fold doesn't do that, and even with this taskbar, it's still not going to do that. It will just, you click on a link in an app and it will full screen that app on top of the app you're just running. It includes your currently running app. Same for things like opening the notification shade. The Duo, you can have an app open on one screen, you can open the notification shade on the other screen, and because they're treated as two separate phones, essentially, that notification shade doesn't include the app you're looking at currently and stuff like that. All of those little advancements to the multitasking experience on Duo still, I think, puts it over the top of the Galaxy Fold. But the conclusion I came to in my editorial is, does it matter? do people care about a phone that does multitasking very well, or do they want a phone that doesn't have a gap down the middle? And I think most people, when presented with the choice, are going to choose the Galaxy Fold regardless of how good or bad it is at multitasking, because they don't want a gap when they're watching a video on YouTube. They want to have that full screen be the video rather than one screen be a video and the other one be an empty home screen. And yeah,
well, this comes back to the continued marketing messaging issue, which is Duo is a dual screen device, and the Fold is a phone that turns into a large screen tablet, a relatively large screen tablet. So it's a tablet you can put in your pocket. And if you phrase it that way, a tablet in your pocket versus a dual screen device, then it makes a little bit more sense about how different they are. But I think the messaging on this is still just not completely getting out or resonating. You know, I don't see a lot of people including Duo when they talk about foldables, which is good and bad. In one sense, it doesn't make sense to compare the Duo 2 to a folding screen device. On the other hand, it is the one variation of the category. Although, you know, the Z Flip is also a variation.
You know, if there were more dual screen phones, the Duo would be the best one, because there have been dual screen phones in the past. LG tried it, and I think ZTE tried them as well, and they were not great. The Surface Duo is the best implementation of a dual screen phone that we've seen to date. Unfortunately, there just isn't any modern ones to compare it to. So the closest thing to compare it to are the actual foldables, and as such, people see that and go, "Oh, the Duo sucks." But then you can't really. It's like comparing apples to oranges. It's like, yeah, they're both fruit, but they're very different.
It looks like when you look at the Duo, and I think most people, they'll be like, "Oh, looks like they wanted to do the Galaxy Fold, but couldn't." You know, and so they did it this way, which I don't think is accurate. I'll also say that one of the bigger disappointments with the lack of changes with the Fold was there's still the gap. So it looks more like the Surface Book did, where it has a curve
when closed.
where the hinges. And the reason I bring that up is because companies like Huawei and Oppo have solved this problem. You know, I've showed and talked about the Huawei P50 Pocket, which is like a Z Flip, but it closes completely flat. They figured that out, and there'll be a foldable PC coming out that will do that as well, with no gap. You'll be hearing more about that September. And so other companies have figured this out. Samsung, for some reason, hasn't and didn't do it on this one. That doesn't, I'll be honest, it's not a deal killer for myself. I don't care that much about it, but I get, you know, if you gave me the choice, I'll take the one that closes flat, of course. There's no benefit to the curve thing. They did improve the lamination that goes on top of the screen. So it's not supposed to come off and detach as easily as some did. The jury's still out about that. The gully, what do you call it? Not the gap, but the gully kind of thing. Is that a word?
The crease.
The crease, the crease. Sorry, the crease. If it's any better. You know, some people were saying it kind of looks better, but that's the issue with these displays is they always start off when you get it out of the box. There's like almost no crease.
Yeah, it's certainly not as good. It's certainly not as good as the rival foldables. Huawei, Oppo, even the new Xiaomi, which I think I will mention in a minute. They've all solved it, or at least reduced it significantly. And the Galaxy Fold still uses a more crude, maybe the wrong word, but an older sort of method of folding the screen. It's a lot sharper of a fold, which is why it has such a noticeable crease. Whereas the others have, I think they use the term water droplet fold, which is sort of softens the crease around so it looks less like a crease when you open it.
Is it something to do with inking? Maybe. Do these are the foldables?
Maybe. Yeah, I don't think any of them do. I think the Galaxy Fold's the only one with inking.
Yeah, that is a differentiator with the Fold, and so. Let's fade into first of all, let's talk about, there was no Microsoft news with this, which is a little unusual because typically when there is Samsung Unpacked, Microsoft is there in some sort of
They did.
capacity.
They did showcase the already existing
Yeah.
Office stuff.
Right.
Briefly.
Yeah, and that's good, obviously. So this is not saying anything is wrong with the partnership between Microsoft and Samsung, just that there was nothing new to announce yet. Historically, they've shown off things like what's now called Phone Link, working. And sometimes the Samsungs would get new features that were kind of exclusive to them. So nothing on that front, but that could come later, especially with 12L being kind of new. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing stuff around that. Getting to, and we should also mention the colors. It comes in beige, which sounds like a terrible color, but it's actually really nice. It's like an off-white, and it does have sort of gold rails, so on the edges of it, but it's a silver gold. It's in some lights on some videos, it looks silver, so it's not like a gaudy gold. It's a very subtle one. It gives me a little bit hints of the, was it the Lumia 9? Oh my God, I'm forgetting the Lumia. It's the 930.
The
right?
white and gold one. Yeah, that was a nice one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that was a nice one. Yeah, so, and they also had a black one too, a matte black. So it kind of looks like that, which is, gave me, I was like, ooh, that one's kind of nice. And then there is a, was it gray green, and then there's black, and that's kind of it. And they're not doing the bespoke colors that
there's a limited edition burgundy one.
Oh, right, that ships a little bit later. Yeah, that was kind of cool too, but didn't wow me as much. And the flips get bespoke color options, which means you can actually mix and match colors and make your own, which is kind of wild.
That's cool.
So that's cool. But let's talk about the trade-in stuff, because this was, for me, the big story. And we've kind of known about this. This isn't really new, and this is only for some markets, like United States. I think you guys get some discounts too, but the U.S. seems to be the big market where this happens, and people are kind of, jaws on the floor kind of thing. So I'll mention I did order a Fold 4. This is going to be my first Fold device. I've handled them in the past, but this is going to be the first one I actually have. And the reason is because I have a Flip 3, and I love the Flip 3. I think it's an amazing phone. I never use it. It's literally in mint condition. Because with the Duo 2, I just use that all the time, and there's no benefit for me to going to the Flip. If the Duo didn't exist, I'd absolutely be using the Flip 3 as my daily phone. And I was tempted to get the Flip 4 because that would have been my third Flip. But the Flip 3 launched at $999, which was a pretty good price for that thing. Samsung is going to give me $900 to trade it in, which is really kind of absurd, especially because when I got the Flip 3, I traded in the Flip 1, and I think they gave me $750 off or some like ridiculous thing. I think I ended up just paying $200 for it. So it's a massive trade-in value. So that eliminates $900 off the sticker price. There were a couple other discounts in there as well. They're giving you the free cover, which is it's a cover. It covers the back and the front and the hinge and all that kind of stuff. And it has two options with it that come in the box. One is the S Pen. So it comes with the S Pen. And it's a holster, so you can carry the pen with you all the time in this case that's on the back, which is kind of cool. And say you don't want that, you can pop off the pen, and then you can put on a kickstand and snap that in place. And now it becomes a kickstand for the device for watching movies and doing whatever you want, which I thought was wild. And it's like an $80 value, but I think it's really around $50. But they're throwing that in the box. That's totally free. And then you can get other discounts on other things as well. So that's a reason why I ordered it. Now, why not have you ordered one, Zach? And then we'll do Jez.
I don't know if I'm ready to give up the Duo. That's the only reason why I've not ordered one yet. I've looked at it. I've been on that product page. I've had it in the basket. But I don't know if I'm ready to be done with the Duo yet. I love this device so much, and I'm still, it's still thinner than the Galaxy Fold when it's closed and when open as well. Like the Galaxy Fold's still a thick boy. Xiaomi just today announced their next foldable, the Mi Mix 2, I think it is, or Fold 2. And that is the first foldable that actually rivals the Surface Duo in thinness. It's 5.4 millimeters thin when open. And it closes completely flat as well. So they've been able to finally achieve it. So hopefully Samsung can do that in the future. But as of right now, the Galaxy Fold, let's be honest, still a chunky phone. It's very chunky.
And it did. Yep. It got a little lighter too.
You get a little lighter, yeah. It's still it's very thick, and I don't know. I think I still prefer the design of the Surface Duo 2. But I am on the fence. Don't get me wrong. If I have one in the next few weeks, don't be surprised.
And I should be clear, because I'm ordering this, it doesn't mean I'm switching from the Duo 2.
You're trying
I do have two. I have two active SIMs. The Duo 2 is my primary number, the one I carry around when I leave the house. That's my A phone. My B phone right now is the iPhone Mini. I've mentioned this in the past. I use that partly for the site so I can keep up to date on iOS, as well as the new apps for Microsoft thing that's coming out. Plus, it's easy to carry, and I use it at the gym primarily because I do use all the health fitness stuff. So this would most likely go on my secondary SIM. That said, I mean, I'm not lying to myself in the sense that I could be absolutely persuaded to maybe use this as my primary phone if I find the experience better or different enough that I like using it. And don't worry, we're going to be doing tons of articles and we'll talk about on the podcast whether or not that happens. But I just want to set that up. I'm not doing this to replace the Duo 2. I'm just doing it as kind of an experiment. You know, Zach and I are definitely on a dual screen kick, but can I be convinced to go to the Fold 4 and use as my daily? So that'll be an interesting experiment. Now, Jez, you actually have the Fold 3. You're a big advocate. You did buy the Duo 2 when it first launched, which was it was rough. We didn't really recommend people buy the Duo 2 at that point. You did. You had it for not even a couple of days, I think, and then you sent it back and you stayed with the Fold 3, and you really liked the Fold 3. Yeah. That said, you how do I put this? You want to get the Duo 3, which is not announced, nor do we know much about it. But you're kind of holding out for that.
Yes.
What's going on with you in Fold 4? And why are you, or why not are you getting it?
So I watched the marketing, and I always get hyped for these kind of events. Like, I don't know, I just like tech events. Like, and they had this whole section where they were talking about the Hinge for ages, and I was like, yeah, this is great Hinge video. Yeah, I'm all about this Hinge. And then I was just like, I was in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy this 100%. But then once you get into the details of it, it's really not that exciting of an upgrade from what I've got now. And yeah, we're going to talk about the trading deals and stuff. But even with the trading deals, I was thinking, like, I could just save this money and basically have the same experience I've got now. Because I was hoping they'd fix the wedge shape without the gap. I was hoping that, there'd be significant improvements of battery life or something like that. Because the battery on the Fold is not good. It's not great.
Yeah, and it does improve slightly due to the new processor. But you're right, they didn't add a larger battery, although I think they did for the Flip 4. Yeah, that's a good point.
It's I think they added 100 milliamp hours or something. It's like tiny bump that probably won't even register in real term use. But and just I don't know. I just thought I was just hoping that it'd be a bit more of a bump, a bit more of an upgrade. Because like in the marketing, they're making this big deal about like, every time we upgrade this product, we have to invent new technology. And then they talked about the Hinge. And I thought like they were going to launch into explanations about how they managed to magically fit a 5,000 milliamp hour battery in it or something like that. I wanted more battery life, basically. Because that's my main complaint about it right now. Because I'm a heavy phone user. I use my phone all day, every day. And like, because I have like issues with boredom. Like I cannot be bored. I get to be fair, Duo 2 doesn't get crazy battery life either. It gets like, if you're just using it kind of as like a normal phone here and there, it's totally fine. It'll get you through the day. But if you start using the camera especially and the dual screens all the time, it goes down pretty quickly too. So that is still a challenge. I mean, I run mine on battery saver mode pretty much all the time, and I still don't get pretty great battery life either. And that limits the CPU to 70%, I think. And the refresh rate to 60 hertz or whatever, and I still don't get.
What are you doing? Why did you buy this phone?
Yeah, dude, like my Razer Blade 70 Pro has a 300 hertz panel. I've got that set to 60.
Oh my god, I hate you.
All right, Jez is no longer on this podcast.
Yeah,
that's sacrilege. You don't leave the house that much though. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. I just got into the habit of it. I put my Razer blade into 60 hertz because I was using it on battery, and I was thinking like maybe that'll save me a bit of extra power. I only get about an hour battery life out of this laptop nowadays. The battery on my laptop is really bad now, but I just left it in 60 hertz, and I just don't care anymore. But point being is, roundabout way, I didn't order the Galaxy Fold 4 because I didn't feel like it was enough of an upgrade to justify the €1,000 spend, which is what I'd have to pay with tax and with trading in my Galaxy Fold 3. So
I think that makes 100% sense.
Yeah.
If I had the Fold 3, it would definitely be hard to justify going to the Fold 4. Absolutely.
You mentioned that you're waiting for the Duo 3. What are you hoping the Duo 3 is?
I don't know, man. I just want to be excited again about a phone, really.
Yeah.
I'm just like,
if it's another dual screen phone, if it's a third gen dual screen Surface Duo, are you still going to consider that, even though you're now a Galaxy Fold user?
I'll give it a go, because there are a couple of things about the Duo that I really like, and they're probably not things that you guys care about too much. But I love the xCloud Xbox Game Pass implementation on the Duo, because that's not available on any other phone. It's exclusive to the Duo, where you get the touch controls on the second screen, which means that you don't get the touch controls on the game. And Xbox games are not designed to have touch controls laid over the top of them. You can't see the UI properly, blah blah blah. And the Duo solves that with its, dual screens. Even like on the massive screen of the folded out Galaxy Fold, you still get the overlays with the touch controls. So I am fascinated by the Duo's implementation with regards to the cloud. Also, I just it's such an elegant device. Like I have the Duo 1, and like even though like I can't use it for my workflow on a phone. I say workflow. I don't really do much work on it. It's just Reddit, really. But like, I just prefer the massive screen on the Galaxy, the massive continuous screen, and it's great for media consumption. It's great for drawing. I do more sketching than ever since getting a Galaxy Fold, because it's got that really nice screen, and the new S Pen is really good. Not like that, the fiddly little needle you used to get with the Note phones, right? And I actually have a third-party case, which is basically the same as the new Samsung case, where you slot the pen in the back. It does the same thing. So like I get to carry the pen around with me all the time as well, and I'm like I got it like I remember when I got the was it the Note 20 Ultra, I think. I got the Note 20 Ultra back in the day, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna use the pen. I'm gonna go to events and take notes and stuff. And then the pandemic happened, so there was no events. And now I'm going to Gamescom in a few weeks, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll finally be able to do some note taking with a phone, digitizer. So there's that stuff too, and obviously the Surface Pen is even better than the S Pen. It's a more generous size. It's got a better like nib and all that kind of stuff. So I think the hardware proposition that Surface offers is just sublime. It's like even the Surface Duo 1, it's a work of art. You look at it and you're like, man, this should be in a museum or something. It's a stunning piece of tech. Whereas the Galaxy Fold is just more usable. Like there's more versatility in it with the continuous screen. Even though it's ugly, it is an ugly phone. It looks like it kind of reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Homer designs the car.
Yeah,
and he sort of throws he just throws everything in the kitchen sink into this device, and it looks horrible, but maybe it's the car that can do everything. I like the Galaxy because it's the phone that can do everything, even though it's just a hideous chunk of a device. So I'm just hoping that the Surface Duo 3 brings some of that usability that I want from Samsung with the elegance of Surface, and I'll get my perfect phone. But who knows if we're even going to get one right now, right?
Yeah, the pen is really interesting because I had a Note 20 Ultra, and that has the little stylus thing that popped out. And you're right, it was a toothpick. And there were two issues I had with it because I had the same thought. Oh, I'm in media. I'll use this to take notes. It's very uncomfortable to use that little stick for more than 30 seconds because it's metal and thin, and like it just starts hurting your fingers immediately. So there was that issue. Like there's just no way you want to use it for, if you just need to circle something, draw an arrow, great. But if you actually want to take notes, it was terrible. And then there was, even though the Note 20 Ultra had a large display, it was still too narrow and just not comfortable to write on. You'd be surprised how much space you actually need to take notes on, and that was not it. So I'm looking forward to using the Fold 4 in that sense. In fact, if I schedule myself properly, I should be going to Israel with Intel in September. I'll be probably using it there for that. And so I'll be curious about the experience. I do use Duo 2 that way. I actually really enjoyed it. I could take notes on one side and use the camera on the other. So as the company was talking about something, I'd take notes and then I would just snap a photo all at the same time. So that was kind of fun. But I'll see if I'll do that with the Fold 4. Now, should Microsoft do the same trade-in program as Samsung? Because one thing I feel good about, if I stick with the Fold 4, I could still cancel the order. It's in the back of my head. Or I may return it, or I may just sell it for a profit. But we'll see what happens. But one thing I like about this is, like, I know Fold 5 next year comes out. I'm probably going to get at least, $900 or $1,000 for this thing from Samsung, plus discounts. I'll probably end up just paying a couple $100 for the Fold 5, which may even come down in price. And that's where they get you. Now, Apple started this, and Apple does this really well too. So if you have an Apple phone, an iPhone, and a new one comes out, you can go trade in that. They'll take it, and they'll give you a pretty good value. Yeah, you could argue you could sell it for a little bit more, but man, just walking into the store, be like, take this, give me a new one, thank you. And getting a huge discount is really nice. And they even do that with their Macs and iPads and everything. And the reason they do that is because of loyalty. It gets you, it's just much easier to upgrade that way. Like, why would you switch? And if you try, give them a Samsung phone, they'll take it, but I think they'll just give you a couple $100 for it. It's nowhere near the iPhone. Samsung's doing the same thing here. I already mentioned the Flip 3 is $999, which I'd even pay that. And they're going to give me $900 for that as a trade-in, which is absurd, especially when the iPhone 13 Max Pro, the top tier phone, they will only give you $705 for as a trade-in. It's still a nice chunk of money, but like the last I checked, that phone is a little bit more expensive, and it's definitely more expensive than a Flip 3. But Samsung obviously does that because they want to reward Samsung people. And it mentally works because I absolutely, plus they're throwing in the S Pen, they're throwing in a case, they give discounts on other products if you're buying them. They threw in a bunch of, there's actually 100 gigabytes of OneDrive for 6 months or something like that, and there's Spotify. There's all these other things that they're throwing in. So should Microsoft do this with Surface? And, what do you guys think?
I mean, they should, but I don't think they can. Is the real issue? Samsung and Apple are both massive companies, and yes, while Microsoft is technically also a $1 trillion company, the amount of units they move in the Surface division is minuscule compared to every other company selling hardware. To the point where Microsoft the Surface division would almost certainly start losing money if they were to offer trade-in deals this, nice. It's like, I don't think. It wouldn't make sense for them monetarily. I don't even know if it makes sense for Samsung monetarily. I can't see how they're making much money if they're with these crazy trade-in deals.
I mean, if only
the reason they do that,
had Sorry.
No, it's all right. Go ahead.
I was going to say, if only they had some kind of team dedicated to customer reach out.
Hold on, we're not ready to segue to that yet. But it's a good point. We'll use that segue in a second. But yeah, I think what his point is just scale. Samsung is they're massive for Android, right? I mean, and it's really about their ecosystem. With this phone was, I believe, announced the new watch and new accessories. And the idea is you buy into the Samsung ecosystem. It's not even Android at this point. It's what Samsung's doing with it. And Apple's done that very successfully too. And they're in a position where they're so massive and have so much invested in market share that they could reduce costs just to grow that market share. There's a constant battle. According to Apple, last quarter, they saw more people switching from Android to iOS. I don't know if those were Samsung users, though, but they could have been, other phones, LG probably. But so they can do it at scale. They also, of course, are going to sell these as a refurb, and they're getting a great deal on my phone because it's barely been used. I could even have them send it back to them in the original box. Now, if they were to Surface, we should mention you can do trade-ins with Microsoft, but it's technically through a third party. They don't do it directly themselves, and it's really terrible. It's you have to send a device. Like, first of all, it's not a point of purchase kind of thing. That's what really works for Apple and Samsung. When you're buying the phone online, do you have a phone to trade in? Yes, I do. What is it? And you fill it all in, and then it goes, all right, here's the value. And that's what you pay. You pay. So I only paid $1,000 with tax for the Fold 4, which is really good because it almost would have been $2,000, right? If it was otherwise. But so I'm not paying the $1,800 up front, and then I send the phone in and I get a rebate. That's what like Microsoft does. And it's just like, well, what's the point of that? That doesn't feel good. Best Buy also does trade-ins like this as well. And I remember I was telling Zach this, that like, I love the Surface Pro 8. It's one of my favorite devices next to the Surface Pro X. And there's a Pro 8 with LTE now, and dun dun dun, that's like Dan's favorite thing. So maybe I'll trade in my Microsoft's Pro 8, their review unit, for a Pro 8 with LTE, right? And like, so I looked at, and they were going to give me, I think, $250 for a Pro 8. I was like, that's absurd. Well, who would do that? Like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, now it makes sense to go sell it. It'd probably be better if I went through Best Buy, which actually I should probably try. Maybe I will try that. But now, why bother? Pro 9 is going to come out. We expect, September, October. So, but yeah, I love Microsoft to do this, but they're just not in a position financially or in terms of scale to do this. I keep saying this on the podcast, the Surface gets a lot of attention and really sets the standard for PCs, which is the point. But when it comes to sales, it's less than 5% of all PC. I mean, they're a small sliver. They're probably in the top 10, probably closer to 10 in terms of numbers.
So I guess the question I have at this point really is regarding the Duo 3. What is Microsoft going to do? I mean, if we take a look at the Galaxy Fold and what Xiaomi just announced, and Vivo and Oppo, they're all doing these single screen foldables. Microsoft is the outlier here. Do they throw in the towel and just copy the competition, or do they stick with dual screens? What are they going to do? What do you guys think?
Jez, you go first.
I think they should throw the towel in because the market has spoken, friends.
Yeah.
And they have sat up and said, we prefer the versatility of a single screen foldable.
Yeah.
Because this is about sticking it in your pocket ultimately, right? And I don't think many people think they need two separate phones that are glued together, because there are some, solid use cases. But even the one you mentioned about taking a photo on one screen and then using the inking on the other, even though that would be useful to me, just because I'm dumb, that would never have occurred to me unless you'd have just said it. I literally sat there and said, this is what you can do with it. It's like there's some sort of like mental leap that I think an average consumer has to make to sort of work out how this can benefit them. Whereas like the single screen device is just an iPad. I mean, you just know what it can do and what it's for. It's a more simple narrative to take with you. It's an iPad you can fold into your pocket.
That narrative does work very well when you see it on your computer or TV. When I show the phone to people in person, though, they absolutely get it. I show them the email client, how you can just scan your emails on one side and read them on the other, or Reddit or something like that. It clicks in for people why it's benefit. Plus, how thin it is and its size wins. But you're right. I think it's a tougher sell. And Microsoft has been pushing this strictly as a productivity device, as an extension of Microsoft 365. And it is aimed at professionals and people who work in the office and sales and all that kind of stuff. They are aiming it at them, not necessarily the prosumer market, which is what Samsung's going after. But I mean, I think your points are absolutely valid. I still think Microsoft will, of course, continue with Android phones, absolutely, and making their own, because their goal, and we talked about this a couple of podcasts ago, as Zach was explaining, that they expanded their Android teams, they combined them, because they ultimately want to make Windows and Android work really well together, because so many people have Android phones, and they kind of want one of their devices to sort of be the example of how that can work as an extension. So I don't know. I still prefer the dual screen thing. I'd love to see Duo 3 do that, but my hunch is they go with a single screen foldable, which then begs the question, as Zach was kind of bringing up and alluding to, which is how then do they stick out and differentiate themselves from everyone else? Now, to be fair, actually, that device was to come out today. The differentiator would be you could buy it. And I say that because the Chinese brands, was it Xiaomi, Huawei, Oppo, aren't sold in most Western markets, and some of them don't even ship with Google Play services like Huawei's.
And I think that explains why Samsung has been so slow at innovating on this fold design.
Yeah, this is Michael
competition
Fisher's
over
point.
here.
Yeah, he makes his point because he's done quite a few videos on this, and he says, he wants to see more competition because Samsung is kind of getting, resting on their laurels a bit. So that could be the differentiators, the fact that Microsoft made it, and you can actually buy it in the United States, and it works with Google Play services as well as other Western markets where the Chinese phones. And I don't think the thing with Oppo and Huawei, I don't think that's going to necessarily go away. A lot of those companies have seen significant market share drop, not just because of the foldables, but because of all devices, partly because the iPhone is actually making pretty big inroads in China. So those companies financially are kind of getting into a little bit of trouble, which will be interesting to sort of to trace. So maybe that could be the differentiator, but we're not expecting Duo 3 until the fall 2023. That's a long time, so a lot of things could change. On the other hand, who else would make a foldable Android in the US market or
Google.
UK market?
Google's the only other one, I think.
Yeah, and Google's never really shared, or the Pixel series has never done. They're kind of like Surface. Gets a lot of attention, doesn't really sell much. So they could actually probably compete with Google there. Maybe they'll team up.
I doubt it.
Probably right.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking that as you said it, like, because like back in the day, didn't Google partner up with different companies to make their Pixel phones?
They did. Yeah.
Could it be like a Surface Pixel foldable or something? I don't know.
Well, the problem for both companies there is the hardware side is that makes sense, but the software side it doesn't, because they're both trying to push their own suite of software. Google, G Suite, Microsoft 365. Who would be the provider of that software on top? And I think Google would argue it should be them because it's Android.
It's pretty interesting. I just asked our live chat on YouTube with a poll, should the Surface Duo 3 be single screen, foldable, or dual screen? And it's a straight 50-50 split.
Yeah, I imagine with this audience. Before we move on, because this segment turned out to be a lot longer than anticipated, but I think it was a very fun and interesting discussion. Someone's asking about Samsung DeX and whether or not we would use it, what we think about it, and is that a thing? Again, I keep plugging Michael Fisher here, but he did a whole video where he just used DeX as his main computer. He used a dummy laptop and just plug it in. And so I would encourage you to go watch that video. He thinks it's really nice, but there was also a lot of issues with it, and ultimately he never stuck with it. And I appreciate what Dex did, just like what I appreciate Continuum was doing, but I don't think we're there yet. These need to be more powerful to replace the computers that are coming out. Unfortunately, the computers coming out are getting much more powerful as is. So I don't think that's going to necessarily catch on ever. Do you guys have different opinions on that?
No, I agree. It doesn't make sense. And also, Android just is always going to suck as a laptop/desktop experience, in my opinion, because it doesn't have Android 12L. Maybe the beginning.
Supposed to help
it may be the beginning of change for that, but as of right now, it's not there. I don't think so.
What would I need? Because I'm going to Gamescom in a couple of weeks, which is a gaming convention, and if I can avoid taking my laptop, that'd be great. So what do I need? Do I just need like USB-C to HDMI and plug it into the
I think you can
hotel?
wirelessly do
Not
it
even
on
that.
some TVs.
Just USB. I think you can, but yeah, most. Go watch Fisher's video. There's I forgot the company. Someone will probably say it in the comments, but there's a company that's been around for a couple of years. They even did this with Windows Phone, where it's a dummy laptop. It's the keyboard, the display. It's an all right display. It's got a battery in it, speakers, and all that. And
Oh, is
you
it
could
the
just
next
use
stock?
wireless. Yeah, next stock I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then or you just plug in with the Type C cable and do it that way. So that's all you would need to do that. And yeah, I think for us, for going to an event, that's pretty much all you would actually need. I know that's what I would. That's why I use ARM devices when I travel, because that's all I need. I don't need all that extra power with me.
Yeah.
So, and then someone else was asking about the new watch, which now I forgot the name of that watch too.
The Galaxy
What
Watch
is
4, a 5.
Galaxy
five.
Watch
What?
Pro thingy.
Yeah, the Pro. So I mean, I think that they're great. Like I mentioned this previously that like I was big on smartwatches years ago. God knows I had every Fitbit that existed. I bought a Fossil watch. I had them all, and I think they're really great. And I still use the Apple Watch at the gym, but I moved on from smartwatches. Now I got into mechanical watches. Invested a lot of money into those, which I was thinking about. I could use the money for the Fold 4 into a new Tudor watch, but that's beside the point. And I'm using the Aura Ring for all my stuff. And the reason I do this is not just because the fancy watches, but because I didn't like just getting all the notifications. And I know, of course, I could turn them off, right? You don't have to have notifications, but it was another distraction in my life. I didn't like necessarily if I was out to dinner with someone or talking to someone, something would come in and I would look at my watch. It was just, it just got annoying for me. And then it begs the question, all right, what am I using it for if I don't have the notifications? Because for me, that was kind of the primary thing of it. And I actually do like it when I'm at an event, right? I do need to I like it and people need to contact me. But in terms of daily life, I found it annoying. So I think for a lot of people, it's good if you want that. For health, fitness, sleep, I use Aura Ring. I know Jez uses Aura Ring now too. Jez took my advice, and Jez, you want to plug Aura?
I love it. Yeah, it's awesome. I love it. But I got it for a different reason to you, because I got tattoos which block all smartwatches. So I was like, oh damn, I can't use my smartwatch anymore. So it sort of happened at the same time, because it's infrared, isn't it? Which reads
That's really sad. Never again in your whole life can you wear a smartwatch.
But honestly,
well, imagine that sensor technology will improve.
I mean, I tried wearing it on my other arm for a while, but it just feels so weird and wrong being on the other arm. So I was just like, yeah, I get the ring, and it's just it is better than having a smartwatch for fitness, because, like Dan said, less distractions, and also the battery. You don't need to charge it anywhere near as often. So
yeah, it's like 5 days.
Yeah, so it's Oura Ring's awesome. I really like it.
Yeah, they introduced the sleep stuff this summer, better sleep algorithms, and SpO2 sensor, so it gives you your breathing rate as well as oxygen saturation, and yeah, it's just a really cool device. If you want, someone can hit me up. You hit me up on Twitter. I have a referral code I'll give you. I can get a discount. Just saying. If you want to get one. Someone's telling me the Surface Pro 8 at Best Buy would be $350 at the trade-in. This is the problem with anything that's not Apple or increasingly Samsung, is the trade-in value it's just not there. Apple, you can go and sell a 2015 Mac and still probably get $1,000 for it, or $800 at least. You couldn't even sell a last year's Windows laptop for anything like that. So it's pretty. All right, we're going to finally move on, because that was a very long segment. But let's talk about MLX team layoffs. First of all, Zach, what is MLX? Why were there layoffs? What happened? And what does this actually mean?
So MLX is short for Microsoft Life and Experiences. This was a team at Microsoft that oversaw a handful of consumer-facing products, including Family Safety, Money in Excel, and Mile IQ, which I actually hadn't heard of until right now. So the two, Money in Excel was actually killed off earlier this year, if you remember. That was something they announced, I think, last year or the year before last. They made a big deal about it, and then nothing. And then they finally killed it off earlier this year. Mile IQ, I have no idea what that is, but as far as I'm aware, I believe that actually Microsoft sold off Mile IQ back to its original creators at some point in the last year as well. The last one of those, of course, being Family Safety. That is still around, and as far as I'm aware, that's sticking around. That isn't going to go anywhere. But MLX sort of handled those three products, plus a number of other sort of consumer things here and there as well. And yeah, the team's sort of focus was on consumer-facing products at Microsoft, taking a lot of enterprise technology and stuff that they built for the enterprise space and trying to create consumer versions that they can sell to people like you and me. And that team...
Cortana was one of them.
Cortana was one of them. That team has been laid off. Around, according to Business Insider, around 200 people on that team have been told to look for jobs elsewhere at the company or take severance. And they have 60 days to do so, which is a real shame, unfortunately. And that team does appear to be getting shut down. Now, on the face of things, this does sound like terrible news. Does this mean Microsoft just isn't going to cater to consumers at all going forward? The answer to that is no. Just because there was a team dedicated to trying to make consumer products from enterprise stuff doesn't mean that that was the only team that had to do that. Lots of teams at Microsoft have consumer versions of stuff that they can focus and work on. Surface, for example. Yes, Surface primary customer is the enterprise, but they still sell Surface to consumers, and that will continue to happen. They've also got Xbox. That's not going to change or go anywhere. Xbox is an entirely consumer brand, and does its own thing and has done for many years. Microsoft 365 for families and for personal use, that's a consumer product. That's not going anywhere. That's handled by Microsoft 365. So stuff like that, Windows as well, there is an enterprise side, but there's also a consumer or normal user side, which also isn't going anywhere. All of these sort of staple products, the consumer versions will continue to exist. They'll pump out new versions, improve them, etc., etc. It is these more specific things like Money in Excel, where they're trying to adapt an enterprise technology for consumer things, which I think will happen a lot less now because this team is going away. And that's basically the story. That team's being laid off, but Microsoft's consumer efforts, they will keep trying just without a dedicated team to focus on it.
I remember when this group was formed, and it was Medi announced it 2018. And this was around the time, by the way, people remember I mentioned Cortana, where Cortana was getting the push with the glass thermostat. There was this idea that Cortana was going to be in smart devices. And there was a whole event Zach and I were at. That was in Vegas, I believe.
That wasn't me. That must have been DTL.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe it was DTL. Okay, I guess it was. But that was part of that, as well as Microsoft Teams for Home, and some other things out there. Yeah, this is just, I don't want to say disturbing. It's just like the whole concept, the way this was announced was Microsoft saying publicly, we're not that cool consumers.
Yeah.
This is our effort to try to win them back and be cool again with consumers. And then like 4 years later, you're like, rip. I don't know, again, if this was poor leadership, no direction, which is, again, that is poor leadership, or it's just unsavable, right? Like you just can't sell this. I do, but this goes back to the heart of Microsoft's continued problem outside of gaming for Xbox, which is it's just not cool or hip with consumers, despite the fact their products are used by a lot of people. It just doesn't have the sway as Apple or other brands. And I don't know why they can't fix this. They're just, I think part of it is because of their bureaucracy, the way the company is still organized in ways. You have people there probably shouldn't be there anymore. That's been in the headlines a lot of old guard executives protecting what they want to do. I think, and I think they just haven't had the right people in place to manage this.
Yeah.
Surface, we mentioned for last quarter's earnings, did pretty well, but even Microsoft said it did well with enterprise. Their Surface for Business is actually doing very well, and that's great. The consumer market is flattening, but still, Apple doesn't say that, right? Like Apple's mostly consumer, and You would think with Surface they would be able to, get people, especially the Surface Go series.
Yeah.
And they don't. And I don't know. I don't know what the answer here is.
I do wonder if this team failed. And I don't know how. I don't know the intricacies of how this team really worked, of course, and this is more speculation than anything. But I do wonder if maybe the fact that it was a dedicated team outside of all the other product teams that was focused on this consumer stuff was its downfall. I would imagine if you're Windows, or if you're Microsoft 365, or if you're the Teams product group. And this consumer team goes, hey, can we like take a version of your product and build it for consumers? I think a lot of those teams are going to go, well, no, because if it turns out to be successful, we kind of want that. We want a consumer product that's successful, so we're not going to give that to you. We would rather try it ourselves. And maybe that's ultimately why this product group failed, because they're running around going, hey, we can try and make a consumer version of your product, and everyone's going, we're all right. If we can try that ourselves, but we don't want you to get your hands on it. That's just a theory. I don't know if that's what really happened. But there is a history at Microsoft of teams not working well together because of different leadership between the teams and different visions and goals and stuff. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's ultimately what shot this down as well.
Do you have any thoughts? You have to.
It's kind of it's like what you said. It's that sort of long tail problem that Microsoft's always had, where it's like it's too big for its own good, too many moving parts, and when it comes to consumers, like the consumer habits are evolving at a breakneck pace, and because of the proliferation of technology and new habits are being created, like read recently Google admitting that youngsters are using TikTok as a search engine instead of Google and stuff like that. So, it's can you imagine like Microsoft trying to relate to Gen Z? Just for example, it's sort of that winning that next generation of consumers that is honestly critical. And Apple's very good at it. And and so other companies are very good at it, and you'd think Microsoft would be better at it, considering they are this huge tech company, and they are pretty good at preempting things sometimes. But again, it's usually preempting things in the enterprise space, and I think the reason they're better at operating in the enterprise space is because other enterprises are as slow as they are.
Yeah.
we can operate on your speed, guys. Because your business is still using Windows XP, we can help you upgrade that, stuff like that. And but consumers are a bit different. People are sort of companies invest huge amounts of money into marketing. Like even that Samsung event, that's some like famous K-pop band playing with the flip. Can you imagine Microsoft like getting a K-pop band to like showcase Surface or something?
Microsoft used to do it with Lumia, right? But I always found it super cringe. I always hated it. I was like, oh, why? Jessica Alba's here to talk about the Lumia 1020. Thanks.
Yes, I remember that.
Just to put this in perspective, what Jez was saying about like advertising and Samsung Electronics spent nearly $2.3 billion US on advertising in the United States.
Alone?
Just the United States for 2021.
That's even more.
The amount represented an increase of almost 25% in ad expenditures compared to the previous year. That is bonkers. $2.3 billion just for the United States. And last I checked, despite what some Americans think, the world's bigger than us. So that means they probably spend, I don't know, 10 billion worldwide at least, maybe.
Yeah. Because Samsung is in every billboard and advert here in the UK as well. I see Samsung everywhere all the time, and it's not only just in person. I see internet ads with them as well. They are everywhere. It's like. And it's always immediately after the event. It's like they have these queued up, and then they're like, go, go, go. And then you just see it everywhere. Like, I've seen Galaxy Fold 4 ads already, and it's only been a day since it was announced. That's how crazy Samsung advertising is. And Apple does the same. Guess who doesn't know? Microsoft. Yeah. Microsoft doesn't do that.
Microsoft
and we've explained the
duo.
bad
at marketing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Even like on the Xbox side, like the Xbox community is always like, Microsoft, why aren't you talking about these things? There was this whole thing where like Forza Horizon 3 basically had no marketing. Like Microsoft just assumed no one would want to play a racing game, and then like the community blew it up instead, and then they were sort of taken aback. They put all the marketing over on Gears of War, and I don't know what it is about Microsoft, and I think it is probably what Dan said, that there's a lot of sort of corporate bureaucracy that is preventing sort of innovative and fresh ideas from surfacing within the corporate structure. But how do you?
And I think they're probably also risk averse, you know, because if you're in charge of a product and you're like, all right, let me get this budget for advertising, it's way more than you usually get, you know. If you don't get the results to back that expenditure up, guess who looks bad for that quarter when your quarterly review comes up, you know? So I think there's like, and they're notorious for doing these reviews by the managers, and they have quotas, and, you know, it can be a tough company to work for. And I think, you know, if that's what you're dealing with, you're like, why would I stick my neck out on this? You know, like Panos has to stick his neck out already, and he has, right? I mean, they did Surface Neo, and then that happened. So they do sometimes do this, but you're right. When it comes to the advertising stuff, they're just, and they can do ads. I remember the first Surface ads, you know, the kids dancing and all that kind of stuff. Like, they had stuff that was catchy, but they're not consistent about it. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough problem.
Yeah, I think the only product that Microsoft really has tried to push and advertise recently is the Surface Pro, and that makes sense. And maybe the Surface Laptop, because those are the mainstream Surfaces. I'm not surprised that Microsoft doesn't push the Surface Duo, because it is a very niche product, and it's, you know, we've argued it wasn't ready, and if to sort of market mainstream to everybody when it was in the set that it was at launch probably wouldn't have been a great idea. But yeah, the Surface, I think that, you know, if they were to have to advertise specific product lines, they need to advertise Surface Go, because that's the cheap entry-level model. They need to advertise Laptop Go, they need to advertise Laptop and Pro, and I barely see adverts for the Surface Pro. I don't think I've ever seen an advert for the Surface Laptop. This may just be a difference between UK and US markets, however.
Yeah, I see them.
Yeah, okay, you see them. But I don't think I've ever seen a Surface Laptop UK ad on television, for example. I've seen it. I've seen a Surface Pro one. I haven't seen a Surface Laptop one. And it is... Yeah, and I would like to see Surface do that. And this is a conversation we were having earlier, us three, in a meeting before the podcast, about how Microsoft, in regards to sort of communication and just having community advocates and being more open, just isn't really a thing, especially on the Surface side. In the past, Windows has had it with the Insider program, although these days the Insider program is, I think, taking a step back. They're a lot more quieter than they used to be, less open. Surface has never had it. Windows, as I mentioned, Windows there. Xbox, Jez, I don't know if you're how is Xbox in regards to sort of being open and community driven?
Xbox is incredible, actually, on Twitter. Like all the execs and all their like even like lower level sort of, you know, employees, they're all very active on Twitter, responding to questions. You know, and sort of building that rapport with the community, you know. And Twitter is a bit of a bubble, you know. It's the wider gaming market has very different sort of habits to the sort of hardcore community that do get involved on Twitter and stuff. But that hardcore community evangelizes your products, right? You know, and they will tell their friends about it and stuff like that. And I think Xbox understands that in a way that the rest of into all of Microsoft either doesn't understand or just doesn't really care about. I think like there's a sort of, I don't really get what their goals are for some of these products. It kind of feels like they're just hoping that they'll become popular based on their merits alone. But the thing is, if there's two products that are really great, identical even, and one has marketing so people actually know about it, which one's going to win in the marketplace, you know? They obviously still care about consumers, because I don't think they would have bought Clipchamp and integrated Clipchamp if they weren't interested in winning consumers, because Clipchamp isn't an enterprise grade video editing suite. It's very consumer level, basic, you know. It's solid, but it's not like you're not gonna be editing like a movie on it or something. You might like edit something.
Going back to the messaging of Microsoft, they lean heavily on the messaging of productivity, empowering you to, you know, was it that Nadella quote, empowering you to create or do whatever. That's sort of their mission, and if it doesn't fit into that, it doesn't, except Xbox, of course. But that seems to be how their consumer products are lined up. I guess they're sticking to their bread and butter. That's supposed to be like Nadella's big thing, right? Return the company back to its kind of roots and stuff. But even Windows 95 tried to be kind of hip and cool, and kind of was for a little while. So I don't know. I don't think a lot of this will change.
I do wonder if any of this would change when we get a new CEO. Because how long's Satya been there now? 8 years, 9 years? He's been there for a bit.
Yeah,
I don't know if he's retiring anytime soon.
Investors love him.
Yeah, I know they do. I know they do.
Unless he wants to retire for personal reasons.
Which he could, you never know. Maybe he had a 10-year timeline in mind, and he's coming up on that. Who knows? Anyway, whenever it happens, it may be tomorrow, it may be in 10 years. Who knows? I would be very interested to see what happens with Microsoft next. Whoever comes in, what vision will they have? Because I'm sure their vision will be slightly different. I doubt they'll just get a Satya Nadella copycat. Because let's be honest, we went from Bill Gates to Steve Ballmer to Satya Nadella, all three of which are very different CEOs in their own rights. Would we get another Satya Nadella after Satya Nadella? I don't think so. I think it'd be somebody different with a different vision, a different mindset. Would that mindset be more, hey, we've got to go harder on consumers? Would that mindset be more, hey, let's go even less hard on consumers? We don't know. It will probably be half driven by the stock market and investors. But at the same time, Steve Ballmer was certainly not driven by those factors a lot of the time. And whatever he did, that period between 2005 or 6 to when he left in 2013, 2014, was some of the most exciting periods of Microsoft's time, I think. Yeah. Yes, they made a lot of missteps, but they also made a lot of awesome products in that time.
Because he showed so much enthusiasm.
Yeah, he was a fan. He was a fan of his own company.
This is going to be so controversial because it's a little bit political, but I don't mean it in the political sense. They should get Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy, because he's so insane. Like, just get him hawking Microsoft products. Yeah. That would be hilarious. Of course, that would offend a lot of people, and he is kind of insane, as I mentioned. Well, we'll see what goes on, but yeah, this is, I think, a losing battle for them, unfortunately, unless, you know what, they hired our team to guide
yes, us three.
Because I think the three of us together could, we should be a consulting agency for Microsoft. All right, let's move on to 100 million Game Pass users. ? I imagine this is a Jez story. Jez, what's this all about?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Michael Pachter, who's a famous video game analyst with Wall Street, Wedbush analysts, he said that with Activision Blizzard, that Game Pass will blow up to 100 million subscribers. Obviously Activision Blizzard have Candy Crush and Call of Duty and World of Warcraft, and these are like major franchises stuff. Candy Crush, of course, pre-installed on Windows, at least on my Windows. It's, every time I reinstall Windows, Candy Crush is there. It just comes back magically, and I'm like,
it's a Microsoft app. It's pre-installed.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. When Microsoft will own that app, so Candy Crush will, become Solitaire.
It's the next Solitaire and Pinball. It's going to be a classic.
Yeah. And Solitaire is actually one of the most played games in the world. You wouldn't think about it, but it's huge. Like even on mobile as well. And but these are the kind of things like they're thinking about when it comes to Game Pass. Is like this is more content to ramp Windows users into subscription service. It's just it's going to be another sort of Office 365 thing where it's like we're gonna how many do we know how many Office 365 subscribers are Microsoft 365?
I don't think they show an exact number anymore. Let me see if I can find
I think
one.
they just change year to year percent change.
It's a massive amount though, isn't it? We're talking it's over 100 million. I'm pretty sure I remember that figure from back in the day when they did show figures. So it's probably even more than that now. So but it's like it's really interesting because this whole deal, the whole 100 million subscribers thing, hinged on the idea that the FTC won't actually block this acquisition. It's Microsoft's biggest acquisition ever, $72 billion, $70 billion, somewhere in that ballpark. So the FTC could block it. They could just be like, you know what, we think this is anti-competitive. it hurts the video game industry, whatever, and will block it. And I think that would be a major catastrophe for Microsoft. But it'd be interesting to see what actually happens with Game Pass, or what if they do try and change the strategy if the deal fails, because as we see in the streaming, the entertainment subscription industry is hyper competitive right now. Like I saw today, Disney overtook Netflix in subscribers for the first time, which is crazy to think about. And obviously, Netflix has lost subscribers over the past year for the first time, battered their share price and stuff, because people have started going back outside with the pandemic ending, right? But then Microsoft's also lining up Family Plan, which is $25, and you get 5 accounts, which is crazy value, and they're doing that just to blow up the subs. So, that's what that news is about.
Do we know if there's any other game company working on a streaming service? I know Google has Stadia, which hasn't done too well. Is Sony working on one?
Yeah.
So Sony already has one.
PlayStation
now.
I guess it's not great.
Yeah, it's amongst the laggiest of the lot right now. But they are supposedly going to be using Azure and Microsoft technology to serve PlayStation Now. So Microsoft gets money from that as well. You got Stadia, and then Amazon Luna, which is available in the United States right now. Obviously, I've never tried Amazon Luna because I'm not in the States, so I don't know how good it is. But the benchmark is actually Nvidia Geforce now, which is regarded as the best one. They have the best video encoder and the lowest latency. But obviously no exclusive games. So it's
no surprise with Nvidia. Not only do they specialize in graphics cards, GPUs, but also servers. They do a lot. That's one of their big businesses right now.
So I've just had a thought. I guess the exclusive, because I know Microsoft has said Call of Duty and stuff will not be platform exclusive. That will be available on PlayStation and PC, wherever it normally is available, even though Microsoft owns it, just like Minecraft. But I guess that doesn't apply to streaming services, right? That only applies to playing the game locally on a console.
Yes, exactly.
So if the future of gaming is streaming, Microsoft has Call of Duty, and that's a Game Pass exclusive, and that's not going to be on PlayStation Now or Stadia or whatever else comes in the future. And I guess that's how Microsoft is like strangling the industry, but in the future. It's like not happening yet.
And that goes back to what I was saying. Like, sometimes Microsoft is really good at preempting the future. Yeah. And this is one instance where they are on the right path,
Yeah.
And they're like, we figured this out, and streaming is probably going to be like, and Phil's always like, there'll always be a place for console. And I think they've been very smart to anchor. Obviously, Xbox Cloud is powered by Xbox consoles.
Yeah.
So if you're making server blades for the cloud, you might as well package those up and sell them locally anyway. So they're always going to have a retail business on the side, I think, for people who want to play locally, because I don't think you want to have this sort of situation where you have all your eggs in one basket, right?
Yeah.
That's what's killing Netflix's share price. They have all their eggs in one basket. Their entire business hinges on subscribers of Netflix. They have no retail business. They have very little merchandising. Obviously, they don't have any in-app purchases, and they've tried to add some games to Netflix, but we saw headlines this week. Only less than 1% of people actually paid for it. So it's a brilliant strategy. It's and it's going to be interesting to see where it all goes, because
it does explain why Sony pays developers to not put games on Game Pass, because they're trying to block that, I guess, monopoly in the streaming space, which doesn't technically exist yet because there is barely a streaming market. But Microsoft got there first. This is the first time in a long time where Microsoft got somewhere first and is actually winning rather than getting there first and then losing at the end of it. So good on Microsoft for figuring that out. Good on Xbox.
Let's move on to a very short story. Open source emoji. What is this all about, Zach? You covered this story.
Yeah, so Microsoft's design team decided to open source 1,500 of their Fluent Design 3D emojis, and that's basically the story. what this essentially means is any designer or developer building an application or a service or anything that would use emojis can take Microsoft's emoji designs and remix them, customize them, and use them in their own products without having to pay Microsoft a penny, as far as I'm aware. And that's basically it. Essentially, they've released the art styles and you can customize them and do what you like with them. And that's really nice. I've never heard of open sourcing artwork before, which is essentially what an emoji is, right? It's artwork. But that's the wording Microsoft used, so I use that in my headline. I guess this would be more, putting them as public domain, but I guess that's almost technically the same thing. That's literally the story. Sorry?
Where can they find them?
They can find them on GitHub and Figma. Which I don't know what Figma is. I think Figma is a website a website for designers. It's where you can design things.
Yeah, it's where you can get like clip art and stuff like that. I believe stuff like that. So it makes sense. Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on this outside of where my 3D emoji for Windows 11.
They're in some apps. Apparently, they're in Teams. So if you want to start using Teams, you can find them there.
Teams for home. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No one's using that. All right, let's, as we're coming close to the podcast here, quickly go through our review roundup. Reminder, I did post the Dell XPS 13 review finally, so you can go read that. Cale Hunt did the Intel Core i9 12900HX processor review. We kind of hinted, I believe, at this last week. So this is Intel's top-tier flagship mobile processor, 12900HX. It is effectively a desktop processor that is mobilized, so you can't replace it. You can't pop it out of the thing, but it's pretty powerful. It's a 55-watt chip, but it can go up to, I believe, 135 watts. It's only going to ship like in laptops like 15 inches and larger because the power brick is going to be massive for it. But it can perform. The only thing that beats it is a couple desktop processors. I think the 12900K for desktop as well as an AMD processor. So it's going to be used in high-end gaming laptops as well as HP has their ZBook line, which they have one. Not maybe the Fury, but it's a 15 inches of monster device, and it will ship with the HX in there. It's basically for mobile workstations for people who need a portable desktop replacement. Like not a lot of people need that, but for those who do, that's what this is there for. You can imagine battery life is actually not so bad. So it's in a laptop called the MSI. Oh, what's it called? It's got such a MSI Titan GT77 is what it's shipping in right now. We have that review coming up soon as well. It's a 17-inch laptop. It's a big boy. It's cool though. It's actually got cherry switches for the keyboard, and it's really nice. And battery life, if you're just using it as a regular laptop, I believe it's 4 to 5 hours, which I know that's, if you're productivity, that's not good, but like that's actually really good for a gaming laptop. So not bad. Razer Stream Controller review. Womp, womp, womp. I got a 1.5 star. Yeah, I don't want to dwell on this one. There was a little controversy about that. That may have been too harsh. I believe Jez is going to take a second look at that to see if he agrees with it. He's going to use it for a little bit of different purposes, so look forward to that article in a couple of weeks. Cult of the Lamb for PC review, an adorable adventure, though, through the ominous occult. Okay, Zachary Body.
Dan, you might like that game.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Yeah, it looks kind of cool.
It's like, you remember Happy Tree Friends?
Yeah, of course.
It's basically that, but you run a Happy Tree Friends cult, and you can sacrifice the little cute lambs to an evil god and stuff like that. It seems really cool.
The artwork looks fantastic. I love the colors on it. Super bold looking. I love stylized games from like kind of like smaller indie developers. They just look so cool with that artwork. So that's called Cult of the Lamb, which I love. His description was build your cult, slay your gods, and stay one step ahead of death itself. That sounds fun. I'll see about getting it for the Steam Deck. He gave it 4 out of 5 stars, so it does seem to be pretty well. And also the Falcon Northwest Tiki, a bantamweight desktop packing a heavyweight punch. So this looks like this is a compact desktop PC that looks pretty nice actually. And he gave it 5 out of 5. So this was Chung reviewed this one, and he actually really liked it a lot. So it runs AMD, AMD Radeons and Ryzen 9 5950X processor. That's a good processor, but it's in a small package, which is kind of cool as well. So those are the major reviews. I should also mention, as I'm using it right now, Razer announced a Deathadder V3 Pro. This is actually a really nice gaming mouse. This is like pro level gaming mice. Like, this is their top tier. They sold 15 million of the Deathadders. That's how popular they are. It's their most highest selling. So the version 3 was just announced. There's a huge article on it. It's got like the new optical Gen 3 switches, a 30K optical sensor. I mean, these numbers are getting absurd. Of course, it has the 1,000 hertz polling through their hyperspeed connectivity, but you can get their new dongle set up for $30, and it'll give you 4,000 hertz, which is like, I mean, this stuff's getting crazy. I got 30K optical sensor. Like, I guess if you're running like an 8K display, that would be helpful. But I think for most people, this is going to be overkill. But if you're a pro gamer or really, really like gaming, make sure you go check it out. It's $150. You can also get a deal if you combine it with the hyper polling dongle. You can get it for $164.99, so they give you a discount when you combine them. But I have the comparisons between it and the Deathadder V2 Pro, which Richard Devine reviewed last year, and he flat out called it the best gaming mouse. The perfect wireless gaming mouse is here. They completely redesigned this one now from the ground up. It looks similar, but it's got a lot of new stuff. So, but there you go. Actually, my favorite mouse, the one I use daily because I'm not a pro gamer, just showed up. I can't tell you about it. It is under embargo, but you'll hear about it in a couple weeks, and I'll share my thoughts because I'm going to review it. I'm very excited about this one because they did a lot of cool upgrades.
Dan, I want to ask you something. Have you seen any of those vertical mice that seem to be trending lately?
Oh yeah, I have one, and I reviewed one, the Lenovo one, for instance.
Right.
I don't know if my camera will blur it out.
I want to try one.
This mouse is incredible, and it's like $40 or something like that, and it has awesome cork on it. I actually was using that as my main mouse for a long time, but there's something with the mouse I was just referring to that I just really like as well. And for those wondering, let's see what the name of it is. I'll get you it's the Lenovo Go Wireless Vertical Mouse, and I did a review of it. Dude, the thing costs $34. And knowing them, it's probably cheaper because they always do sales, Lenovo. But it's got a cork base. It's just awesome. It's a really cool mouse. Very comfortable to use. Yeah, it's more natural. It's not a gaming mouse, obviously, so it doesn't have high-end specs, obviously, at that price. But for a basic mouse, it's actually very cool. So there you go. Oh, and someone was asking me about the Think Reality A3 glasses from Lenovo in the chats. And I've talked about those previously. I do have them. I haven't reviewed them. I really should. They're not cheap. But those are the glasses you put on and you connect it to a PC and it gives you virtual displays. Actually, you should try to plug it into my desktop since it's powerful enough. You need a very powerful PC to run these things. But the idea is you put the glasses on and then you could have, so I'm using a single monitor right now, not an ultra wide. You could do 5 monitors that are floating in a space virtually, and they actually show up in Windows settings as actual displays. You can resize them, you can change their orientation, you can interact with them. The only issue, the glasses do get, they're heavy. Like, you start wearing them for a little while, they press into your nose and all that kind of stuff. But they're kind of cool. I'll see. I got so many laptops I have to review. I'll see if I can do something on this because it is cool technology. It's still very much, though, for like very early adopters, in my opinion. But it's kind of cool stuff. All right, let's do a thing of the week. I don't think I have one, but maybe I'll come back to one. Zach, do you have a thing of the week?
Yeah. I watched a TV. I guess technically it's a show, but it's about the length of a 90-minute movie called Man vs. Bee on Netflix, starring Rowan Atkinson, also known as Mr.
Nice.
Bean, which is essentially the character he plays in this. He plays a talking Mr. Bean, and it's about a man who gets tormented by a bee. That's literally what it's about. It's a comedy. It's a comedy. It's for laughs. But this guy is obsessed with this stupid bee that keeps flying around, and the whole 90 minutes is spent on him trying to kill this goddamn bee, and it just will not die. And he gets into lots of trouble trying to kill it.
I'll have to check that out. So that does remind me of my quick story, which this is the dog story I was going to mention. This was my Sunday morning. I get woken up, told that Abby, she pooped in her crate. And not just pooped, she had diarrhea.
Who told you this?
The missus.
So she didn't deal with it? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, she wanted my help.
Okay.
She did a lot. She's very good with the dog. She does a lot. But she definitely wanted my assistance because this was like 7 a.m.
Sure.
So this is what I've dealt with. So there's something we're getting her tested. She did have hookworm a while ago when she, I think, first was taken off the streets. They treated her for it, was negative. But now they're curious. They said it could come back and all this kind of stuff. So we have to test out right now. It's either that or it was anxiety and stress, totally possible, or the food, we were changing her food because for different, people and all that kind of stuff. So maybe the food, either way, she was having that. So that's why she did it. She's actually trained. She doesn't go in her crate normally. So she was covered in it. We had to we had to take her out. It was just, we had to bring the cage, the crate out onto the deck, and we're going to hose it off. And then I'm doing that. And then all of a sudden I get stung right on my leg. And I'm like, yeah, what the heck? And Abby, she came to my defense. She was there too. I think she got stung, but she was biting these black jackets in the air. She was snapping her teeth and and just going at them. I'm like, all right, dog, go get them. Yeah, so obviously there was a nest somewhere on our deck. And then later on, like a little while later, I had to come back up the deck, but I walked very, very quietly. And I still got stung. I got stung a second time. And this is all like before 9 a.m., man. I was getting stung. The dog's covered in poop. The cage is a mess. It was hot as heck outside. It was humid. I mean, I was done by 9 a.m. I was absolutely done. And then I think the toilet seat almost broke. It didn't really break, but the lid came off and it was just like, oh, now I got to deal with that. So that was my Sunday. That's my kind of B story. I did nuke those black jackets, though. I just absolutely destroyed their nest. So my thing of the week, I guess, would be hornet spray, which is very, very good. Jez, what's your thing of the week?
I have nothing. I have no thing of the week because I've just been heads down over it, I think, at the minute. I also watched Man vs. Bee on Netflix, so I'm gonna co-opt Zach's thing of the week. So Mr. Bean, big Mr. Bean fan. And like, if you mute the show, it's basically like watching Mr. Bean. You don't even really need any dialogue for this show. And but yeah, I don't know. There's no things of the week. This week's a bust. I'm ready for the weekend.
It's all right. I didn't have anything positive necessarily happen. So there you go. We'll see what happens next week. As always, thanks for tuning in. We are going to do Q&A with the audience now. So if you guys have questions about things we did talk about in the podcast or did not talk about on the podcast, you can now put those into the chat. We'll get to those. If you listen to this recording, you don't get to hear that, but you can join us every Friday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel at Windows Central. Although, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the podcast, next week, if we do a podcast, it'll be again on Thursday because we have a company mandated date off. You can follow me on Twitter, Daniel_Rubino. Follow Zach at ZACBOWDEN and follow Jez at JEZCORDEN. You can also follow Jez on the Xbox 2 podcast, which is where he just talks with someone else about gaming and Xbox and all the news that's happening there. As always, thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time. Take care, everyone. OCD kicked in 1 minute, 30 seconds. Or 1 hour and 30 seconds.
Do I hit
1 minute
stop now on the recording?
1 minute. It's been a long day.
Do I hit stop now on the recording?
Yeah. Hit
yes.
stop.
All right. Okie dokie.
Big news is Merrick Garland is going to be, he's the Attorney General, is going to be giving a statement about what happened with that raid on Monday. The Trump thing. Dun, dun, dun. Drama.
So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. We'll hang around for 10 minutes or so and try our best to answer them. Dan, check your Duo for update. Is there any update yet?
Oh, yeah, 3 o'clock. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, we've been expecting that to drop today. Nope, not yet.
Oh, damn. Maybe in an hour then.
I bet they do it around 5 o'clock.
Yeah,
they've done them
probably.
at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Before.
I was hoping it would drop before the end of the podcast. I was like, we've got a minute left of the podcast. Has it dropped? But no, it didn't drop.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Oh, by the way, I'm putting the Zach, the podcast recording into the Brain Trust.
Let's go. Do you think the fall event is going to be in person? I would be surprised if there isn't a small gathering of people for the event. Maybe not for the actual live stream event, but there'll certainly be in-person press sessions probably before the event. They did that with the Duo with the event last year, where press were invited to sort of get hands-on with the products before the events, and then they did the event, and then the embargo lifted and everybody had hands-on videos. Could Microsoft maintain both single screen and dual screen phone lineups? I mean, they could. I don't think they will, though. I think what's more likely to happen is they'll do a single screen foldable, and then at some point they'll do a normal slab phone. I think is probably what's more likely to happen.
Go on.
Do you recommend an iPhone, an Android, or a Surface Duo device for business and personal use? Well, I'm going to recommend the Duo, but it's probably not the greatest choice for anybody, really. Both iPhone and Android are going to be great for business and personal use. They both have features built in where you can separate your personal use of your phone from your work use. I guess if you use Microsoft, services for business, an Android device might serve you a bit better than an iPhone. But even then, it's a close experience, I think. What do you guys think?
Galaxy. All of the phones are trash.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just whatever you get locked into, to be honest. Like, if you're in the iPhone ecosystem, I get why people stick with it. I still have all the same complaints as usual, but it does work pretty well. What do you want? Them and Samsung are both competitive. It just depends on what you want to buy into. So, as far as the Duo, yeah, and I think it's a great for office and productivity. But
this one's
it's a little expensive. It's getting a little old.
Yeah, this one's for Jez. Is anything known if Microsoft is making money from Game Pass when you take in the costs of AAA games like Horizon 5?
They're kind of like from my conversations with people at Microsoft, they aren't willing to lose money on it.
Sure.
But I don't think it's massively in profit. I think basically they're spending as much as they're earning while they're in the growth phase, but they do seem to be taking measures to make sure that they don't lose money. So you have to remember that when it comes to content on Xbox Game Pass, it's not like Netflix or Spotify even, because Spotify has literally every song in existence, whereas Xbox Game Pass is more like a rotating library of content. So it's not like Xbox Game Pass cannibalizes other games, and because of that, it's a smaller library. It's a smaller curated rent library, basically. But on top of that, you've also got the microtransactions. So improving access to a game makes it more profitable. Look at all the free-to-play games that exist out there. Like Diablo Immortal, technically free, but the game makes $100 million a month at the moment. So there's a sort of philosophy is with game development is you improve access to the game, and then once you got people locked in, then you sell things to them, microtransactions, which are, a lot easier for people to process in abundance, So while I don't think it's hugely making money, I also don't think it's losing money. I think the whole point of this current phase of Game Pass is to spend everything they earn on content, R&D, and growth. So anything they earn is going towards growing the service right now. So yeah, but they're not losing money.
I think that makes sense.
I'm pretty sure they're not.
Yeah. Do you think Moment 1 will come this year or next year? As far as I'm aware, I think the first Moment update for 2022 is supposed to be this October. But I'm not too sure on that yet. But yeah, I think it will be this at some point this year. Oh, OneDrive turned 15. That could have been a story. Oh, well.
SkyDrive.
SkyDrive, yeah. SkyDrive, that's a throwback.
It was called Mesh before that, wasn't
Windows
it?
Live Mesh or Windows Live Folders, I think it was something like that. And then it was SkyDrive, and then it was OneDrive because the horrible company Sky, which actually provides my slow internet. They didn't want Microsoft using the term SkyDrive. Someone says Surface Pro or iPad Pro. If you want a device that's good at being a laptop, get a Surface Pro. If you want a device that's good at being a tablet, get an iPad Pro. That's pretty much how to look at things. How's the new ThinkPad working out for you, Dan?
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, I love it. I'm having a tough time, in fact, because I have so many other laptops I'm trying to review that I'm still using that as my default laptop, when I can, when I want to. But I'm forcing myself to put it down for a while. I did get the HP Elite Dragonfly in this week, Gen 3, and that's a really nice laptop too. That uses an Intel Core 12th Gen Core U series, so it's a little bit better on battery life. And it's a little bit bigger display. It also has 5G in it. The difference, though, is that laptop starts around $2,000, whereas you can get the ThinkPad X13S for I think around $1,200. So it's definitely more affordable to go with ARM. But I can't deny that they're both pretty good. But I think the battery life is going to definitely win for the ARM still, the ThinkPad. But yeah, I mean the short. I have to review that in a couple of weeks. I have to do the X1 Carbon first, and then. Probably an HP laptop, and then I'll come back to that one. Well, actually, I got to do the a Razer laptop. I keep forgetting to do that. But yeah, I love it. If you were thinking like, should I go buy it now? Yeah, I would go buy it. I mean, I love it. I'm going to continue using it. I'm going to use it next week. I got to travel for a thing, so yeah.
Which do you guys think is better and has better success, Windows Phone or Surface Duo? I will say Surface Duo certainly has a wider reach. Well, maybe not in sheer numbers, but in just compatibility with things. It's an Android phone, so it has more apps than Windows Phone ever had. It supports tap to pay in more areas than Windows Phone ever supported it. Stuff like that. It has all the banking apps that you would want. It's an Android phone, whereas Windows Phone was always missing something, which is why most users didn't sort of adopt it, because it always had that one thing which they couldn't do on that device. That said, Windows Phone certainly sold more. The Windows Phone sold in the millions, and Surface Duo hasn't.
The scaling is just different between the two, of course. But I think you're right. The Duo 2 technically is a more successful device. Although at the time, we did less with our phones in 2013 than we do today. So, remember, I still find this bizarre. Like the Lumia 520 didn't even have a front-facing camera because that wasn't a thing back then. Yeah. So we just used them differently. And at the time when Windows Phone came out, they actually did get the job done, but could they do it today? I don't know. That it had to continue to evolve. LGHS, are there any mice available besides Logitech that have a scroll wheel with a freewheel function? Stick a pin in that. That's the mouse I was just talking about. That's under embargo. That's my favorite one. And this new version that's coming out does have that. So it's a really good mouse that I think you will like. It has all sorts of cool stuff on it. So just give it a couple weeks. I think it's the end of August for that embargo. How did I get this cool shirt? Forgot about this shirt. Zach, you were with me with this, right? In Germany, we got this. This was IFA, actually. We were hanging out with the To Do team, as they are based in Berlin. And so we know a couple of the people on there. I've met with them before. And they gave us these cool shirts. And it has, like, the Microsoft on the back and all this kind of stuff. And it's very comfortable, especially on a hot day. So, yeah, there we go.
How much is Surface Duo selling? We don't know that. Microsoft has not provided a sales number for Surface Duo. I would, an educated guess would place it between the tens and hundreds of thousands, but I don't think it's anything more than 1 million. I think a million would be wishful thinking for Microsoft.
I'd be amazed.
Have I heard
500,000?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Have I heard anything about the Pod Pro mattress by 8 Sleep? Absolutely not. It's the first time I've read those words in succession. I'll take a look, though. I do want to get a new bed. I preferably want, not only, we have an adjustable, but I want one of the cooling beds. I think if I had to choose one feature in a new bed that I would recommend for people, it's the cooling. It's been shown in a lot of studies that you get a deeper sleep when when the temperature is like around mid 60s, and it just helps, and that's my thing. I hate sleeping in hot nights. It's really very tough for me. Did I miss a conversation about ARM 64 EC? No, we didn't talk about that. We probably should have.
I missed that. What's that about?
I don't even know what there was news this week with Microsoft officially launching. I think support for ARM 64. What's it called? EC.
Or in Visual Studio?
No, I think for developers. Yeah, for developers can now make their own apps.
Oh. Cool.
Let's talk. Hold on. Well, we won't talk about it now. We'll talk about it next week. Put it that way on the podcast, which is next Thursday.
I mean, it's not much to say, is there?
I forgot. I even forgot what the actual story was. It's Windows 11 on ARM gets big boost with rollout of ARM 64 EC. Microsoft rolled out support for Windows 11 on ARM. Blah blah blah. This setup allows developers to migrate apps completely over to ARM while seeing performance benefits immediately. To gradually migrate apps completely. Yeah, because
it relies on developers, so it's going to be slow because developers take forever on Windows. Any thoughts on a potential Surface Pro X2 this fall? Will it keep its own branding or be mixed in with the Surface Pro 9, just in the form of an ARM version of that? So I've heard that they are considering merging the two lines and calling them both Surface Pro 9, and it will be the Pro 9 with Intel or ARM. That said, I don't think that's confirmed yet, so I'm not too confident on that. So don't quote me just yet. But that is something to certainly think about. If it's not this generation, it'll certainly be the next one, I think.
I want to get this question from John Leveron, who says, "What do you think about a mobile Game Pass with native mobile games and access to Xbox Cloud Gaming?" Now, that's an interesting question because the reason they can't do that is iOS and Android and Google Play's store policies and stuff. I think Google and Apple just blocks it outright. But Google's policy is that Android games have to be distributed as individual products through their store. So what they would have to do in that situation is like you click on a link to the game in the Game Pass app and it links you out to the Android store. I think that's basically what Netflix is doing. There's like a special section of Google Play. Like you can try it yourself on the Netflix app. There's a special section of Google Play for like, it's like a game name by Netflix or something, and it's like hidden and you access it via the Netflix app. I think Netflix have like some kind of special deal with Google to enable that functionality. But this, it all comes back to like, if only there was Windows Phone, because Microsoft could set all of its own policies. Then they could do anything they want. They are severely hamstrung by what they can do with Xbox Cloud Gaming because of Google and Apple. Like they can't offer microtransactions through the app version of Xbox Cloud Gaming on Android, which is going to severely hurt its profitability because of Google's rules. Apple won't even let them offer it at all through the iOS App Store. So if they had Windows Phone, and if Windows Phone had survived and had like a healthy, 33% market share or something, they could have done all this kind of stuff,
Yeah, it's a shame Windows Phone was killed off, but just before the Game Pass thing really sort of happened, right? Had Windows Phone hung on a couple more years, maybe there would have been a play for that exact angle where, hey, we could have gamers, gamers could be our angle. The Windows Phone would become the phone platform for gamers.
Look at the Nintendo Switch, right?
Yeah.
People are literally willing to carry around two devices, one dedicated for gaming, and one is their phone. You could totally imagine a scenario where people carried around a Windows Phone specifically for Xbox Game Pass and gaming on the go, and then their iPhone for doing iPhone things. And then maybe gradually over time they'll be like, well, actually, I can just use WhatsApp and whatever on my Game Pass phone. And it could have gone like that, but the technology, the server infrastructure just wasn't there, and it was
Xbox should make a phone. They should just make an Xbox phone.
Jeez, like Razer.
Yeah.
Speaking of phones and Razer, Motorola Razer 2022 was just announced. Snapdragon 8 plus G1, 6.7-inch matte finish OLED, 2.7-inch cover screen, positionable hinge, 50 megapixel camera, stereo speakers with Dolby Atmos, 144 hertz refresh, and it's only available in China.
So another foldable for the China market.
Who owns
so
Motorola?
Weird. Huh?
Who owns Motorola these days?
Lenovo.
Oh, right, yeah.
Man, China has an abundance of foldable phones.
Yep.
Man, it looks really nice.
Sure does.
If I would totally get a vertical folding phone if the horizontal folding phone didn't exist.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I really want an excuse to buy one. And I say to my girlfriend, like, do you like this phone? Do you like this phone?
Yeah, I'll buy it for you after I use it for a week.
That's what I'm saying. If I didn't have the Duo, I would be using the Flip 3. It's just a fun phone to use. It really is. But I'm unfortunately not a normal person. So
I have a question for Jez about Game Pass. Do you think we'll ever see a Game Pass only game? A game that you can only play on Game Pass via streaming, not on the console. Well, I guess streaming through the console, but not like a disc-based. It's only in the cloud.
Microsoft is sort of. I'm sure there's some interview where Microsoft pushed against this idea, but funnily enough, Nintendo actually has this. Like Nintendo Online has Tetris. That Tetris Battle Royale game is exclusive to Nintendo Online. For example, and I think like they could do it, but it'd have to be the right kind of game. And one game that I think they could do it with is a reboot of 1 versus 100.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Completely online, completely community-oriented game. Wouldn't be something that you sell at retail. It'd be free to play. I think that could be one game that they do make exclusive to Game Pass. I missed
that game. That game was awesome.
There's rumors they're working to bring it back. And there was even rumors that the team making Microsoft Mesh was involved in it.
That would have been killer during the pandemic. That would have been the most popular piece of software in the world. It
would have been, yeah. But there are rumors they are exploring bringing it back. And I don't know what the status of the project is, but... guess we'll have to wait and see. One ski bick. Sorry, I don't know if that's even something pronounceable, but if it is, I apologize for butchering username. Could we expect some studios being relieved from making Call of Duty to be able to make other games after Activision Blizzard goes through? Could you see more mobile games using Microsoft IPs? I think it's definitely possible. I mean, it's easy to envision, like, you could have the Candy Crush team make, like, I don't know, a Candy Crush version of Halo or something. You could even like have, I don't know, a Gears of War skin for Candy Crush or something. I don't know. There's loads of stuff they could do, right? There's loads of IP opportunities because Microsoft has tried to make mobile games of its IP, like Gears Pop and what was that Spartan Assault?
Yeah.
Halo Spartan Assault, which is a decent game. But for whatever reason, all their mobile games just flop, you know. But with this acquisition, they are getting an abundance of mobile game development teams. So one would have to think that some of them will get adapted. The problem is that a lot of these games survive on the basis of being pay to win, and Microsoft is really they don't want to be criticized for having pay to win stuff. So part of me wonders if they'd have the balls to do that. We learned to this podcast. Of course, we did Manscaped ad read last week. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff they could do. Now, would they relieve Call of Duty devs? I think that's also maybe possible. Activision has a lot of IP that they could revive, and Phil Spencer has talked about reviving some of those old games, like Prototype. You think he even name checked Guitar Hero, you know? Could we get like some of the Activision teams working on some of those games? You know, some of the Activision teams were pulled off games that they used to work on Call of Duty during the pandemic, when game development was like really problematic. A lot of projects got put on hold. Like Toys for Bob, the Crash Bandicoot studio. From what I heard, their games got put on hold and they were pivoted towards Call of Duty development during the pandemic. But yeah, it's.
I tell you which studio does need to be relieved of an IP. 343. They need a break. We need to give that IP to someone else because they suck.
Well, Zach, here's one thing I've always thought with this Activision Blizzard deal. How would you feel, right? Because one of the issues Call of Duty has right now is that they can't innovate anymore. We're on like what, Black Ops 5 now or something?
Yeah. We're doing the second Modern Warfare 2 this year, aren't we?
Yeah, so we've got Modern Warfare 2 this year.
Yeah.
So like, how would you feel about Call of Duty Halo, where it plays like Call of Duty, but it's the Halo IP, like you play as an ODST soldier or something? Not a
So you're talking about multiplayer?
Yeah.
I wouldn't be a huge fan of that because I like Halo's feel for the multiplayer. I like how it's more than just point and shoot.
You can have both. You
can have. I'm sure. Yeah, maybe if you can have both, then sure.
Spin-off.
Yeah.
Halo.
If it looks like Halo and sounds like Halo and plays sort of like Halo, I wouldn't be too upset with it. But yeah, it's because there's a lot to. Sorry, go on, Dan.
No. I was going to switch the subject, so you guys want to continue.
Because there's a lot more to Halo than just the gameplay, isn't there? There's all the This is why Halo Infinite's done so bad, I think, is because it launched without a lot of what makes Halo. No Forge, very little custom games settings, no flood, not like all of the stuff that makes Halo just wasn't there. No co-oping campaign. And they're slowly adding it, but the fact that they launched Halo Infinite when they did and thought they were going to launch it in 2020 is kind of offensive to Halo fans, I think. Like, what game did they think they had in 2020? Like, because
pandemic has been devastating for the game industry, but none of them will admit it because it'll hurt their share price.
Yeah.
But like, at least for the next year, we're still going to see disruption and games being delayed. And
I hope Starfield is in a better place than Halo Infinite. Because I know they delayed that, and look, I would rather developers keep delaying if it means, because the first impression matters the most. Once you have that first impression, if it's a bad one, there's that stain lasts over. Like No Man's Sky is a good game now, but it still has that stigma of being the game that promised everything. And yeah, same with Cyberpunk. Yeah. And Halo Infinite, I think will fall in. I think Microsoft will move on from Halo Infinite quite quickly because of its poor launch, and they will try and fix it, but just like with Halo 5, it won't be enough, and so they'll have to do another Halo. Halo Infinite 2.
I want to get this comment from Darkson that says, as writers, do you have any thoughts on the pros and cons of not having comments on the site?
Oh, good question. Go on, Jez. I know you're very vocal about this.
Have any comments. I like having comments on the site because our community is generally pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Sometimes they catch things that I haven't thought of, and there can be some really great, insightful comments on Windows Central community, and I just missed engaging with people, which is why I made the Discord. Is there a link to the Discord in the YouTube description?
I think
There should be if there is. But that's why I made the Discord, because I missed engaging with the community, and supposedly we are getting comment system back, but it it depends on a bunch of other jobs that have to be done from the platform team, and I'll probably start pestering our boss about comments again next week. But well, I don't know what you think.
I mean, I'm the same way. I mean, I used to be the most active person on the site in comments. I always responded to people, sometimes challenge a lot of people, and it was kind of fun. I also don't miss it. It's the same thing we were talking about earlier with Twitter and politics, right? Like you can get involved in Twitter politics, and then at some point you're like, there's other things I could be doing with my life. So for me, it's a double-edged sword. It's just like I only have so much time in a day, and if I'm spending it in comments or responding, which I love doing, and I still do on Reddit, I'll go into Reddit for especially like Surface Duo and engage with people there. But it is time consuming, and so but it's good. I've always tried to get other writers on the site heavily engaged in comments, and it was always an uphill battle. And a lot of our staff never went into comments or responded, so it made it just a place for readers to leave their thoughts. And the thing with comments too is you tend to get the more negative stuff, right? This always goes back to that thing on the internet, which is if something makes you mad, angry, or you don't like it, you're way more likely to go on social media and talk about it than if you actually just think something is pretty good and gets the job done and you think it's okay. No one really goes like, I bought this new car and it's okay, it's fine. Now, if it's something really good and change your life, you may go on social media, but that's also kind of rare. So we end up getting, and you get a lot of trolls. Like, so we actually, our comments used to be sometimes pretty negative. It was always weird. I was always Microsoft. Anti-Microsoft things. So I don't know, mixed thing. Zach, what do you think?
Zach, you muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I liked having comments just to sort of, especially with editorials. Like I just loved seeing what people thought of my opinion, and even if it was a bad opinion, because I have a real thick skin. I don't get upset at people saying horrible things. I don't care if you have something good or bad to say. Anyway, I mean, I care if it's a good thing. Obviously, I appreciate that. If it's a bad thing, I'm like, cool. Thanks for reading my article. But yeah, no, I miss that. I miss seeing all the love and all the hate.
I also used to learn a lot from people. Like sometimes you get like experts on a certain thing or know a technology or know something, and they drop some knowledge. I'm like, oh, that's actually really interesting. I was not aware, and I learned stuff. That's why I love engaging with people. It's like it makes me a better person. I've always said this too with my reviews of a laptop. Like when I would review say a Surface Pro, if like I had a ton of comments, and a lot of the comments were like, why didn't you look at this? Well, what about this? How come this wasn't looked at? Did you consider that? Then I know I didn't do a good job of the review. So actually, when I would see not a lot of comments, but I know the traffic, that a lot of people are reading it, it made me feel good because it was like people would read the review and be like, wow, he kind of answered every single question I had about the thing. And therefore, I don't have anything to say,
Yeah. All right, a couple more questions, and I think it's time to head off.
Yep.
Does Surface Studio work well with secondary monitors? What kind of monitors do y'all recommend in 2022? So the thing with the Surface Studio is that because it's such a high resolution and of its weird shape as well, you won't find a matching monitor that has like the same pixel density and stuff. So any monitor you buy for it, unless it's the Apple Studio display, will look less crisp because you have a really crisp display in the Surface Studio itself. The other thing is with scaling, and unless you buy a 4K monitor at 27 or 32 inches. Oh no, not even that, because that scales at 150. Windows 10 and Windows 11 by default scales at 200% on the Surface Studio, and I do not believe there's a monitor out there in the PC space that would scale by default to 200%. So as a result, when you move windows between them, you'll see like artifacting and stuff because Windows sucks at scaling, and at least especially multiple scales. I think the Apple Studio display is the only thing that will scale default at 200%. But it's an Apple Studio display, so it doesn't actually work too well with PC anyway. But yeah, if you wanted something that can rival the Surface Studio display, the Apple Studio display is probably the closest thing, sadly.
Cool. So
He's
we
wrapping
head
it up. Dan's called it, everybody.
off.
All right, thanks to everybody. We'll be back next Thursday. We'll follow us on Twitter. We'll keep updated when we go live. But until then, we will see you next time. Bye.
Roll.